Hello friends, my name is Shivam from DevOps Schools and I will help you to enable your learning process in various technologies of DevOps, artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data and many more. This is our initiative to help you by sharing multiple tutorials and videos. And if you want any specific tutorials or any particular topic, then please do comment in the below comment section and I will help you with it. Also, please subscribe to our premium services on YouTube, which will give you access to more content and videos to enhance your knowledge about all these topics. Also, if you want me to help you with regards to the online trainings and classroom sessions by our qualified trainers, then please do write me at contact@devopsschool.com. Thank you.
Class D will obviously start with 224 to 239. Correct? After that, there is another class called as class E. Okay? Class E will start with 240 up to 255. Correct? The last number would be what? 255. Is it starting with 0? Yes, the first octet was starting with 0. Last number ends with 255. Yes, total number would be 256. Correct? So total number would be achieved. So by seeing at my first number, I would be able to see whether which IP address of the class which I'm using, whether it's a class A IP address, whether it's a class B IP address. Okay, where is class B? I have not mentioned. Something is missing. 128. So it is there actually in this, which is hidden right now. Okay, class B is 128 to 191. Correct. So you can see these are the classes which ICANN has done. I can say, okay, I give you this number, which is a 32-bit logical number. You can write it in decimal format, no doubt about it. But end of the day, this number would be converted into the binary format, correct, by the computer. Every bit would be 8-bit size, which we can call it as octet. Every octet which we have, if I go with this number, every octet will start with 0, end with 255. So total 256 number would be available in every octet. Based on my first octet, okay, based on this, my first octet, I would create some classes. By looking at my first octet, I would consider what my classes is available, what class of the network is available. Okay, so I can say my current IP address is starting with 192, so I am belong to class C. Because if I say, I can say if your number will start with 192 to 223, you will become a class C. So as per the ICANN, whatever classes which I'm using, I'm coming into that. So I'm using on my computer class C IP addresses. Correct? Now, technically speaking, we are only using 3 classes of the IP address: class A, class B, class C. We cannot use class D and class E. Okay, class D and class E, they are actually reserved. That means it is not publicly available for you. It is completely used for class D is typically used for multicast networks. That means multicast, you know that. What is a multicast? Multicast means sending the information to specific group of people, but not to all. Okay, so class D is actually used for multicast network. Now, multicast networks are there where we are using the class D. Class E is actually reserved for ICANN for research and development. Now, to be honest, Class E is actually completely hidden. There are many hidden services. You really don't know how those classes of the IP addresses are actually working in reality. But I can say this is actually for research and development for IP addressing. But technically speaking, these IP addresses are reserved for most of the secret services, which is the running, some laboratories which are running. So these IP addresses are actually used for research development of IP addressing, but they are also distributed to some very well-known and secret agencies only in order to do their own communication. Otherwise, you won't be able to see these IP addresses at all. So for public use, we only have this IP address cannot be used. Only publicly we can use these IP address. Okay, this is the IP address which we can use publicly. These two IP address we cannot be able to find out anywhere. Okay. Multicast, yes, in some cases, multicast IP address, you will be able to see that, but this RND IP addresses, you won't be able to use it. Agree. So I will just recap what we have seen so far. This is very important chapter for us. I come to know that my IP address, it's a logical 32-bit number, which I am assigning to my computer, correct? Which I can assign it to any device, even your cell phone which you are connected right now, that cell phone also have some IP addresses, correct? Second important thing, this number would be written in a decimal because it is for our convenience, correct? However, technically computer will understand this number in a binary format, correct? So every number which is assigned to your computer, every number do have some specific value. Total number would be 32-bit logical number divided into 4 parts. Every single part of that number contain the value called as octet. That is a 8-bit which is called as octet. Correct? If I say that octet, it will start with 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 128. So total number would be 25. Okay, but when we are writing, we will start with 0 to 255. Total 256 numbers would be there available for each and every octet which we have. Correct? Now, ICANN is the organization who is actually managing all the IP addresses which we are using. So based on the first octet, ICANN divided this number into specific classes. Okay, so they have 5 classes. Every class do have their unique feature. We will discuss after the lunch break. Every class which we are having, some specific range of the numbers is given based on the first octet. If I say class A, the first octet, if any number of your IP address starting with, now 0 is not possible, but I'm writing it down, 0 to 127. So I practically compare anything between 1 to 126. Official number would be 1 to 126. If any number come in this particular range for the first octet, I would say this is a class A IP address, correct? 0, I cannot use it because 0.0.0.0 is it invalid, correct? So I cannot assign anything as a 0 as a IP address technically. 127, which is already reserved because it is a loopback IP address. So this loopback IP address is already given to your loopback adapter on your machine. So you cannot put this IP address on your computer as well, correct? Class B starting with 128 to 191. So any octet, first octet comes in between this number, okay, starting with 128 and the last number in this particular range would be 191. It would be considered as a class B, correct? Class C said it is starting with 192, ending with 223, correct? Now remember that 192 to 223, any number comes in this particular range, it is belong to class C. I gave you the example, my IP address is 192.168.1.4. So the first number is actually coming in this particular range. So I'm using a class C, correct? Similarly, we do have a class D, which is starting with 224 and 239. And a class E would be 240 to 225. Now, practically speaking, we are only using class A, class B, and class C for computer networking or whatever networks which we are configured. Class D is specially used for multicasting services. We cannot have that particular range available for normal IP address configuration. Only if I would like to go for multicast network, I'm using that particular IP addressing. Class E is specially reserved for research and development. Now I told you this range starting with 240 ends with 255. It's specially assigned for research and development for IP address, as well as some of the secret organizations are actually running the IP address in that particular range. Correct? But technically speaking, we always say that it is for research and development purpose. Correct? Now we will stop here till so far. Do you have any doubt in this? Any doubt? Anything? Anything which you don't understand? That's great. Okay, so I think we should take a lunch break, and after lunch break we will see some characteristics which is attached to class A, class B, and class C. Okay, and we will see what is a subnet mask, what is a private IP address, what is a public IP addresses, everything.
Hey viewers, our Master in DevOps engineering program can help you to hone the skills necessary to succeed in high-level DevOps positions. So, what are you waiting for? Enroll now and earn certification that show you are keeping pace with today's technical roles and requirements. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
Talking about IP addressing, and we are going to understand how IP addressing is actually working. What are the different classes which we have, A, B, C, D. Now let's move further and we'll find out some characteristics of each and every class and how I can configure this particular IP addresses and how we can use this. Now remember that we will take one by one class and we'll understand how this particular class is configured, or how what are the rules and regulations are available for each and every class. Okay, so let's take a class A. Now this is the official option which we have. Okay, so what are the characteristics or what are the rules which are available in class A? Now, for example, in class A, the first IP address would be starting, or the very first IP address would be starting, which is nothing but 0.0.0.0.0, which is, I said, is completely invalid. Okay, this is the first IP address of this particular range, correct? Now, as per this particular class, okay, what I can say that every bit which is assigned for 8-bit, okay, so every IP addressing, for example, I will take the IP address range, which is 1.0.0.0, for example. Okay. Now, as per the range, this is belong to class A. Agree? No. Now, this is the first rule which is provided by ICANN. ICANN says the first octet of class A, correct? Remember that this wording is very important. The first octet of the class A will define the network. That means it will tell you what kind of networks which you are using. Okay, so the first 8-bit, it is actually for your network. Okay, so I will say 1.0.0.0, the one is my network, and rest of the 24-bit, okay, so I do have this 8-bit, this 8-bit, and this 8-bit, so total would be 24-bit. It's actually available for host. That means the host side would be allocated for your computers, means these numbers can be changed. This number would be fixed. This number would define your network side, and this number would be defined your host side. So what is the first rule in class A? That 8-bit would be reserved for the network, means you cannot change this number throughout its complete network is completed or not. And last 24-bit, it assigned for your host. That means these numbers would be changed and you would be able to go for those numbers, correct? So what is the availability over here? How many IP address I can come by this network? The network name, the network number was starting with 1, correct? This would be my first IP address of this network, correct? How many total IP address I can use with this particular network? So the reason and the answer of this is 2 raised to 24, because this is the host side. Am I right? So within the network called as one is my network, correct? If I started creating that particular network, how many IP address I can come from class A? 2 raised to 24. So my first IP of this network, because 1 is my network ID, I'm working on the network called as 1, which is starting with number 1. The first ID would be 1.0.0.0, correct? What would be the last IP address? I told you what is the maximum number it will go. 1.255, correct? Dot 255. Rather, I will type it. So first number would be 1.0.0.0, and the last number would be 1.255.255.255, correct? So how many number of IP address I'm getting for this? You can see the first number I have not changed, it is fixed, but the last number would start changing it, correct? So you can see how many IP address I'm getting by the network called as the network is 1. Under this IP address, which is belong to class A, as per the class A, I am supposed to get the IP address which is 2 raised to 24. If you are going for this number, I believe this number is 1677216. You can imagine how many numbers I'm getting over here. I'm just talking about single network. How many such network I have available? 1 to 127. So I take first number. According to the rule of class A, the first number has to be fixed. Correct. I have fixed it. Correct. And rest of the 24 bits. So 8-bit is reserved for the network, and rest of the 24 bits are actually for your host. That means that much number of IP address which you can use it. Correct. So total number of devices I can connect, or total number of IP addresses which is coming from this particular 24, 2 raised to 24, that means almost 1677216. So many IP address I'm getting only for single network. I'm just talking about number one. So this is a rule for class A. Class A rule says the 8-bit is for network side, 24-bit is for host side. Correct. So how many hosts I'm getting if I want to configure any particular class A network, or in a simple language, how many IP addresses if I'm getting, if I'm using class A network. So the number is this, and this is for first network. Similarly, I can have the network called as 2 dot. Correct. Similarly, I have a network called as 3 dot. Similarly, 4 dot up to what? Up to 126. So what is my first IP address? The first IP address is this. And what is the last IP address if I consider this in class A? The last IP address, if I would like to consider, it would be 127.255.255.255. This is the complete range. So many IP addresses. In a simple term, 16,777 into, you can say, 0 to 127. So it's 128, whatever number. You can simply multiply it 127, whatever networks which you are getting. You can see this is a total number of IP addresses which I am getting, which is a very huge number, only from class A. So the class A, the first rule, the first 8-bit is for network, the rest of the 24-bit is for host. So how many total IP address I can retrieve from the class A? It's 2 raised to 24, which is nothing but 16,702, 1,67,000. So 1 crore 67 lakhs, whatever that number is. So this particular huge number, that is a single network can generate so many IP addresses. Correct? This is a very, very huge number. Correct? Now you can imagine the entire globe, whoever using the computing devices and who are using the complete networking for their data transmission. Every single device used to have IP address. Without the IP address, that particular device would not communicate. Correct? So currently we required huge demand of IP addresses. Correct? Everyone should get one single IP address for communication. Otherwise, he won't be able to communicate at all. Correct? So you can see IP version 6, it's a 32-bit number. Correct? So he do have a fixed number. Now this number are fixed. This calculation is fixed. You can imagine currently how many devices are online. Correct? Can this particular number help me to provide all the people who are using internet? Now this is, I'm talking about class A. We will further talk about class B and class C as well. What rules they applied for class A and class B. Correct? Now you can imagine so many demands are available in IP versions 4. Now I will tell you the truth. IP version 6 was introduced in the year of 2000. They started implementing the complete network with IP version 6 in year 2000. It is already they started, because in 1999 we were about to go out of this IP addresses. Okay, that time they started implementing, but till so far 19 years we are still surviving with IP version 4. There is a reason behind it. Correct? So first rule, you need to understand a very basic rule. In class A, first 8 bit are for network, which you cannot change. If you change it, that network would be changed. Correct? This is the one network. So within one network, how many computers I can connect? 1677216. Only single network. 1.0.0.1, 1.0.0.2, up to what? 1.0.0.255. Just this number is raised to 255, this number would get increased. Then okay, then it will say 1.0.0.1, 0.1 is done, 1.0 is there, 2.0, then this number would get increased up to 255, this number would get increased 1. So this is incremental order. The maximum number you will be getting, which is 255. Once this number is 255, just increase this number. Correct? Just the second network would be 1.0.1. This is how it would be raised. Some people do have confusion over it. The second network would be 1.0. The first network would be this. The last IP address of that network is 1.0.0.255. Correct? Now this is completed. This octet is completed. What would be the second IP address? I will say 1.0.1.0 to 1.0.0. Sorry, 1.255. Okay, it keeps going on up to what? 1.0.255. Okay, dot 0, 1.0.255.255. The moment it goes to 255, this would increase by 1. Correct? So the next number would be 1.1.255, 1.1. Now this is done. So this would number get increased. Correct? So you can see the final line would be this much. Okay, so understand, this is very important. Correct? It keeps increasing, and still how much I can go for it? 1677216. So many IP addresses are actually available in this particular link. It keeps increasing. If this is 255, this will increase. If this will reach to 255, the next octet will increase. But this octet will not be able to change it, because according to the class A, this octet is reserved. Now, if I change this octet, then this would be a different network. It is not the network with the family 1. It would be a different network. Correct? Is that clear, or any doubt? I will explain it one more time. This is very important to understand. Remember that if I take class A do have official range starting with 1, and the last IP address officially start with 126. I'm not considering 127 at all. Correct? Now rule says whenever you are using class A network, correct, the first 8 bit is reserved for network side. That will tell you which network you belongs to. Correct? And the last 24 bit would be made for your host. Host means that is the number of IP address which we can use it. Correct? So total would be 32 bit. 8 bit is reserved for network, which you cannot change it. Correct? Last 24, now you can change it in the factor of 255, and you would be keep changing it. It would belong to same network. So if I consider any IP address in this particular range, correct? Now 2 raised to 24 bit, it's a huge number. I told you that number is something very big. Okay? Now, so many IP addresses you are getting in this particular number. This is the number 2 raised to 24. This is very big number which are getting. Let's consider out of this, if I picked up any IP address, let's say 11. What is this is my network ID. This number is fixed. Whatever start with 11, correct? This is my network ID now. This is the part of my big network. After that, what would be the first IP address? 0.0, because our range will start with 0. What would be the last IP address of this network? 11.255.255. Correct? Now within this range, how many number of IP address I am getting? This much. How come? I told you this octet should be going to 255. Correct? If this octet is going to 255, this number will be increased by 1. Correct? If this number will be increased by 1 and this number would go to the 255, this number would be keeps increasing. Correct? Then second network would be, if this number increased to 255, this number would be going for increasing by counter 1. So if I keep creating this network, how many IP address I am getting? This big number. Correct? And I will consider this big number do have a single network. This is a single network. Within that single network, I do have so many big IP addresses which I require. Correct? So remember, 8-bit is for network, 24-bit is for host, 2 raised to 24 is the host numbers, or that is the number of IP address which you are getting. Correct? And this is very interesting thing if you are moving into the next classes. Currently, if it is clear, you can put it in the chat box. If you have any doubts regarding the class A, we will once again explain how these things are working. Any doubt in this? I will type up the range also. 11 dot, the last IP address would be 0.0.255. It keeps increasing up to this 11 dot 11 dot 0 dot, this would be 1.0. Correct? Up to 11 dot 0 dot 1.255. It will go up to this number 11 dot 0 dot, the last number would be 255 dot 0. Last IP address would be 11 dot 0 dot 255 dot 255. Okay, this is finished. So second number would be applicable. 11 dot 1 dot 0 dot 0. Okay, up to 11 dot 1 dot 0 dot 250. It keeps doing that. So this is a single network within, because this 11 number is fixed. This number is not changing. So it keeps doing that. So last IP address of this network would be something like this. 11.255. Even this number is fixed. This number is fixed. This number is fixed. Now I cannot change this number after this 255 because that will change the entire network. So within this 11, the first IP address is this, last IP address is this. So this is my network which is starting with the IP address of 11 and this much number of IP address which I'm getting this. Correct? So this is a rule of class A. Now people ask me, okay, understand that in class A we are getting huge number of IP addresses, no problem at all. So are we using class A in our companies? Now, once again, there is one more thing I need to explain you. Remember that These IP addresses are not free. Yes, you have listened it right. These IP addresses are not free. It's a paid IP addresses. People say it is confused, but I'm not paying for any IP address. I will tell you how. Remember that as I told you that every IP address is required in order to connect to the network, correct? So what ICANN has done, so they said, okay, class A, it should be divided in this way, no problem. We will also convert, or there would be two different categories also come into IP addressing. Okay, one is called as private IP address, and second one is called as public IP address. Okay, private IP address, which is free, you are going to use it in your organization or in your office. You can use it in your office. Public IP address are paid in order to connect.
Hey viewers, trying to get into DevSecOps? Enroll for our DevSecOps certified professional programs and earn the certification that shows you are fit for these technical roles and requirements. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
This is a paid IP address. You are actually paying for your IP address, but that is not something you are paying directly. You are paying the monthly bill for your internet connection or whatever recharge which you are doing. Some amount which you are paying for your internet connectivity, that some amount of that would be deposited for your IP address. This is the money which you are paid for using that particular public IP address. So this is a two different categories. In every class, there is a private IP address which ICANN is given free of cost. Means you can use it within your organization, because within the organization, I'm going to create a LAN. And within the LAN, I should be able to use some IP addresses. Correct? So which IP addresses I should use? To be honest, any number I can use it, no problem. It is just a logical number. But if I can use any number, then there is a possibility that if you try to connect your office to your internet connectivity, there could be some problematic, because this number, if it is assigned to one person, it should be assigned to that particular person for that particular session until and unless that session has not been expired. Correct? So remember, private IP address, which we are using it privately. Correct? So in class A, I can say this entire network, which you can use it privately, means free of cost within your organization. If you feel that your organization do require many IP addresses, my network is very huge, and I would like to assign the proper IP addressing to them, then this IP address is free from class E. Other than this IP address, would be a paid IP address. Paid IP address. This IP address is free. If you are coming across this IP address who's starting with 10, this is a free private class A IP address which you can use in your organization. Correct? There would be no charge for it. It can be made for internal usage only. Other than this, correct, any other IP address which I can see in class A, it would be considered as a public IP address which we are using in order to connect to the global internet connection. So if I would like to go online, if you can check your cell phone and check what public IP address you are getting, the IP address you are getting on your cell phone, majorly, if I'm talking about 4G, okay, if you are connected with the router which is internally, then you will be getting a private IP address. I will tell you in class C when we are discussing about it. correct? But if you are talking about any 4G connection, okay, whatever IP address you will be getting, those IP address would be public IP address, because that IP address will make sure that you should be able to get online and connected to the internet, correct? Any IP address within this range, correct, would be considered public IP address, except the IP address starting with 10, correct? So if my requirement is something like this, I have a company and I do have only 3000 devices in my organization. I said I just have 3000 devices. I want IP addressing to be done for all that particular devices, because all those devices I would like to communicate with each other within the organization I'm talking about. Then class A, give me the huge number. The number I already told you, it is a very big number. 1 6, what was that number actually? I forget that. 1677 167. There are 37, I believe, to 16. This is a big number. But what is my requirement? I just want 3000 IP addresses. What about other IP addresses? It is waste. Am I right? I'm not properly optimizing my IP address in this particular case. My requirement was only 3000 IP addresses. But if I'm using a class A network, I'm supposed to get this big number IP address for a single network. But out of that, I just want to use 3000. Correct? Now, to overcome such problems, they introduce one more methodology in class B. Now, look at in class B what happened. In class B, they said, now what is the class B range? 128 to 191. In class B, what they introduced, they said, okay, it's too much big number which we have, correct? How many networks or how many bits which we are assigned for a network and how many bits we are assigned for the host? Now in class B, they made a very smart move. They said 16-bit assigned for network and 16-bit assigned for host. They equally distributed this. In class A, how many networks we are getting over here? Total number of networks. Host, I will understand. This is the number of host, I will understand. But total number of networks would be 0 to 127. So total how many networks I will use? 128. Correct? This is a network. How many per network, how many computers I can connect, or how many IP address I am getting? This much. Don't do that. Correct? So this is the concept. Here in class B, they said, okay, you will be using 2 raised to 16 for a network and 2 raised to 16 for your host. Correct? So this is interesting. If I say 2 raised to 16, I believe the value size of 2 raised to 16 would be going to 65,536. This is how many IP addresses I am getting. Correct? For example, if I take the IP address, now here is the sequence. Here is the concept. Here is a big difference. 16-bit is for network. So if I say 172.16.0.0, if I consider this is a class B IP address, out of this now, this is fixed. This is my network. Correct? So I cannot change the first 16-bit because the first 16 bit would be considered to be as my network. Rest of the 16 bit which I'm talking about, it would be my host side. Correct? The same case, if it is a class A, what I would do, this I cannot change because this is a network. In class A, this would be changeable. But in class B, they said you cannot change first two because this would be defined your network ID. Correct? This is your network. Correct? And this would be your host site that I can change only this number. So if I consider this is my IP address of the class B, what would be my first IP address? In this case, 172.16.0.0, correct? 172.16.0.255. This will be my first network. Once again, a rule is same. If this is 255, this has to be changed to 1. So second network would be 172.16.1.0 to what? 172.16.1.255. Once again, 255 is there. Then I need to change it to 2.0 to 2.255. Till how much I will go? I will go to 172.16 because I cannot change it up to 255.255. Okay. This is the last IP address of this network. Correct? So this is the first IP address of the network, and this would be the last IP address of the network. Between this, how many IP address I'm getting? 65,536. Correct? So what is the rule for class B? The rule is 16 bit is for network. So how many networks I can create? I can create almost 2 raised to 16 minus 2. Actually, there would be two different things actually. Okay, so 2 raised to 16 is the number of network I can create. So here the number of network is also increased, plus how many hosts I can create, 2 raised to 16. Correct? So understand, this is a different algorithm or different rule set they are introduced for class B. So you just need to remember, in class B, 16 bit for host side, 16 bit for network side. If I change it to this 17, are they in the same network? No, this is another network. This network contains 665. Correct? So till so far, whatever total network we can get it in this would be somewhere around.
Hey viewers, are you looking for formal training on SRE practices? Take our SRE program. This course will teach you how to successfully implement site reliability engineering in the modern day 24/7 services. Kickstart your SRE training today. Contact info is mentioned in the video sidebars and in the description box. Book your seats for the upcoming batches now.
It's a big network, 128.0.0.0. This would be my first IP address of this network, and last IP address would be 191.255.255.255. So you can see how much networks I'm getting. It's a huge number. Now this is network side. This is network side. The host side would be changed. So if I change this number, the network is different. If I change the second number, that network is completely different. So you can see 128 is one network. 128 and 0, this is one network. 128 1, 128 2, 128 3, keeps going on. This number is very huge. Why? Because here the number of network and number of hosts are equally distributed. So this is again the instant system. Now in class B also, I can did something called as private and public. As I told you that I required only 3000 IP addresses, and can I be able to use class A in that condition? You can use that. There is no limitation like that, but you cannot be use this IP address and you cannot waste it because it is a fixed number. This number is fixed. There is no we can generate the number on a regular basis. No, we cannot do that. This number are fixed. It is globally distributed number. So in class B also, I can say the IP address starting with 172.16.0.0 from this network to 172.16 sorry 31.0.0. This is completely this is a private. This is not a public. This is a private IP address range they are given. So 16 to 31, the complete network, very big series, they are given for a private. They said, okay, you can use it privately. You can use it within your organization. There would be no charges for you because it is made privately. Other than this number would be considered once again as a public, correct? So public IP addresses would be used to connect the internet connection. So in a class B, as per the rule, 16 bits are for network side, 16 bit are for host side, 16 bit at the host side means per network, 65,536 IP addresses would be coming per network. And how many networks I have? 2 raised to 16. So 2 raised to 16 is that much number of network is also be increased over here. So this is a very, very appropriate mechanism which we are using in order to distribute the IP. Now the third class. Now this is a class C. Now what happened in a class C? Now in class C, we have a range from 192 to 223. Correct? Now this particular series is belong to class C. Now in class C they said 24-bit is for network. These are fixed. We can consider as a single network. And only 8 bits for host. Correct? Now how many IP addresses I am getting over here? I'm getting only 256 IP addresses because 2 raised to 8 is equal to 266. By written, I told you by writing, you need to go it for 0 to 255. You need to consider, correct? So understand, in class C, how many IP address I'm getting? Only 256, correct? And how many bit are for the network? 24 bits. So here 2 raised to 24 is for network side. So here I can create multiple small network, and within that small network I do have only 256 IP addresses within that particular thing. I will give you the example of my computer which is belong to class C. My computer IP address is 192.168.1.4. Now, as per the rule, 24-bit is for network. So this would be fixed for that network. Only this would be changing. So my first IP address of this network would be something like this: 192.168.1.0, and the last IP address would be 192.168.1.255. Correct? Total 256. So this would be my one network. Correct? Within that, if I change this number, third number, that means I'm not the part of this network. This is a separate network which is coming called as 2.0. 2.0, it's a complete different network because this number has been changed now. Correct? This number is a network information. Correct? Now remember that This will give you the more number of network. However, per network, you will be using less number of hosts. The host number would be 2, 256, not more than that. Officially, you have to use 254, but we will discuss that tomorrow when we discuss about IP addressing thoroughly, and we are talking about subnetting there. So that time, here the number of networking would be very huge. Per network, we are only getting 256. So per network, the number of IP addresses would be very less. However, at the same time, the number of networks would be very high. So if I tell you the total number of networks which is available in this network and what would be the range, you can see the first range would be 192.0.0.0, and the last would be 223.255.255.25. So you can imagine this would be starting as my network ID, correct? This last number would be changed. This keeps increasing because that is once again a network ID. This is keeps increasing. This is not a host now. This is a network site. So you can see the number of networks would be very large number. Per network, you will be getting only 256 computers. In this also, in class C also, they are also giving you some private IP addresses, and there also should be some public IP addresses. Okay. Private IP addresses would be 192.168.0.0. This complete range would be given to you for complete free of cost, which you can use within your organization. There would be no charge. Other than this, if any IP address comes and which is belong to class C, it would be 100% paid option. So that IP address will help you to connect to internet. Correct? You can see if I carefully check, okay, if you can check, private IP addresses would be the IP addresses which you can use within your organization. Now you send me some IP addresses over here. You can see all of you are using a private IP addresses. Now somebody is using the IP address, his network is 143, correct? Some people are using 172.168.0 network is there. So everyone is using these IP addresses, which is commonly used, which is belong to class C private IP address. Private IP address means the IP addressing is free of cost, which you can use within the organization in order to share the IP addresses, so you can distribute your data across your company. Correct? Public IP address typically made for something called as to connect to the internet. If I would like to go to the internet, these IP address would be used, which is a public IP address, which is a paid IP address, which you are indirectly paying for your ISP. Correct? So you can see every IP addresses, there is a specific restriction. There is a specific rule set. So in order to get everything clarified, first of all, you should have the 5 different classes of IP addresses: class A, class B, class C, class D, and class D. Now class D and class C, we are not bothering about that because that we don't know how how they are distributed. Okay, how many bits are for network, because they are not using the same mechanism. Correct? But in class A, I told you, in particular class A, 8-bit is for network and 24 bits is for hosts. Correct? And what is the private IP address range? It will be given. This is the private IP address range would be given. Private IP address, the IP which you can use within the organization for communication purpose free of cost. In class B, 16-bit for network and 16-bit for host. Correct? Now here also, they are giving equally distribution. 2 raised to 16, that much number of networks you can create. 2 raised to 16, that much number of hosts you can create per network. Correct? Per network, how many hosts you can create? 2 raised to 16. Correct? Now here also they are giving you the complete range 2 raised to 16.0.0 to 172.31.255.255. Precisely, I'm typing the entire range. Correct? This entire range would be free, which is a private IP address. So anyone you can come across with any IP address starting with in between this. Correct? 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 21, 23, whatever number. You have to make sure that it is the private IP address which you can use it within your organization. Remember that this is very, very important. And in class C, what we said, 24 bits for network. That means so many network I can create, and only 8-bit for host. That means per network, how many computers I would be connected? 256. But here, number of networks are very high. The number of hosts per network would be less, but number of network would be 2 raised to 24. Correct? So whatever IP address which we are using in class C, anything which starting with 192.168, then up to 0.0, up to 192.168, up to 255.255, this complete range would be free for you. So that's the reason some people do have 192.168, 0.1, 0.12, 0.255, 192.168, 1.0. Now 1 is again a new network because that is a different network ID now. Correct? So in class C, 24-bit is for network and 8-bit is for your host. And the private IP addresses would be starting with 192.168.0.0. So anything after that would be considered as a private IP addresses. Other than this IP addresses, you will be getting public IP address. For example, if I tell you what is this IP address, is it a private or public?
Thanks for watching. Want to study further? Join our training programs today.